for a little while for things to stir. And then she says, "What day is it?" I say, "It's Tuesday." "What are we doing today?" I said, "Sue Aston's coming to pick you up." "Oh, I thought I was painting with Donna." "No, that's Friday." I say, "Let me help you sit up so you can drink your tea." So she sits up, and I can see in her mind that she's struggling through the fog. But as she sits up, I give her the tea, and then the tears come, and then the sobs, and then the words, "I hate it. I hate it. I hate it." And I sit there and I say to her, not words of encouragement, because that's not what she wants. She wants the truth. "Darling, I know this is awful." So she starts to watch the morning television, which is a wonderful distraction for her. And then I go down the stairs, I sit in a chair, and I start to breathe. And I say to myself, how will I make the most of this day? How will I bring some joy into this day for this woman I love? And I know that I have to bring every resource that has been in my disposal to bear. Everything that I have ever read, everything that I have ever written, and all the experiences of my life come to bear in these challenging times. And so this morning, what I want to do is share with you how I keep myself emotionally and spiritually nourished so that I can go through each day, one day at a time, to the best of my ability. There are three pillars that my life is built upon. And I'll go through each one of them to see how much significance they may have for you as well. And the first pillar is called a sense of purpose. And I love the quote by the Indian mystic and sage Patanjali, who said this. He said, "When you are inspired by some great purpose, all your thoughts break their bonds. Your mind transcends limitations. You discover that you are a greater person by far than you ever dreamed yourself to be." I was in my mid-30s when I started to understand what it meant to have a sense of purpose, because I was going through some sort of a crisis at that time. I had been a very motivated individual for all of my life. I'd achieved many goals at a very young age. But I found myself waking up every morning saying, "Why are you going to work today?" And I couldn't find an answer. And then by sheer serendipity, I was traveling and I was in an airport in Toronto, Canada, and I found a book. It was just a pictorial essay, but it was the story of a remarkable Canadian boy who the year before had run the greatest marathon in history. He'd lost a leg to cancer and went on to run 3,339 miles in 5 months across Canada, raising money for cancer research. And I said, how was he able to do that? And it came to me very clearly, he had what's called the power of purpose. And I said, that's what's missing in your life, a purpose. So I started to think about that, and I started to think again about all the people that have this strong sense of purpose, the people that we all admire, no matter what your religious or political persuasion is. There are certain people like the Mother Teresa's, like the Mahatma Gandhi's, like the Nelson Mandela's, people we just admire them. And why do we admire them? We admire them because their lives are about ensuring that when they leave, they've left the world better than they found it. And I said, that's That's for me. That's what I am looking for me. How do I do that? But I am a business person. I mean, does that mean I have to start a charitable organization? And I said, no, think about things. And when I thought about all of those people, the other word that came into my mind was that they were contributors. And I said, how then can you contribute? And as I followed that train of thinking, I also realized that the world, the planet, works around contribution, right? If you have a look at relationships, great relationships are built upon two people contributing to each other's life in the most powerful way they can. What do you want for your life? Okay, I want to help and support you have that for your life. What do you want for your life? Okay. Whatever I can do to support and help you. Great relationships are built on contribution. I'm a business person, so I say to myself, but what's business all about? How does contribution fit into business? Well, I have my daughter, Sarah, here with me today, and we've talked a lot to business people. And when we ask them, what is the purpose of a business? They always come back and say, well, make money. That's what a business is all about. And I have to remind them that they can't make money because it's illegal. I have a second cousin in England, honest story, spent 10 years in prison for making money. Scotland Yard, the police force said, this is the best stuff we've ever seen, but unfortunately, the Bank of England reserves the right to make all the money. When you read the Wall Street Journal, you don't read about what a company has made, you read about what a company has earned. And how do they earn money? By contributing value on a consistent basis to their customers. So contribution fits into everything that we could possibly do. So I find myself now saying, well, you're a caregiver. Caregiving is 24/7. Then what is your purpose? Well, I cannot think of a better contribution that I could make than to ensure that my wife is safe and secure and is doing everything she can to bring as much joy out of life as possible. So that's my purpose. In fact, it's the greatest sense of purpose I think a human being could possibly have, to devote themselves to one other human being. Terry Fox was the person who introduced me to the sense of purpose. He's the man that I wanted to point out to you, right? One more, please. Life asks of every individual a contribution, and it is up to that individual to discover what it should be. Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. The second pillar that I want to share with you is called forever learning, forever learning. And I want to use the words of Meister Eckhart to enter this part. Be willing to be a beginner every single day, every single day. Well, you might have picked up already, if you don't know me, that I'm not originally from the Twin Cities, right? In fact, I'm actually from Duluth. No, I'm not from Duluth. However, so I was born in London, England, and emigrated to Australia when I was 9 years of age with my parents. I grew up, therefore, in Australia, and that's where my brothers and that lived, down in Adelaide, South Australia. But as I was growing up, I graduated from high school at the age of 15, and I had no interest in being further educated. Three of my friends were my closest friends, actually my surfing buddies, believe it or not, became an architect, a radiologist, and an engineer, but David had no desire for that. He had three goals in life: a surfboard, a Volkswagen Beetle, and a girlfriend. They were my goals, and I achieved all of them, and I said, okay, well, what's next? Well, I never really did have, again, I became a salesperson and then got into marketing and all of that sort of stuff, which is not very important. But my journey through life eventually ended up having a tremendous thirst for learning. And I read a lot and I ended up writing a lot. And in the research for my books, of course, I learned a lot. But all of this journey culminated in something that happened to me just 4 years ago. So I'm just about to turn 72 years of age. And I'm reflecting on my life and thinking about what my daughter Sarah and I have done with many, many businesses. And that is, we ask people, what's on your one day I'm gonna list? What's on your one day I'm gonna list? We all have it. One day I'm gonna do this. One day I'm gonna do that. And I sat there and I said to myself, well, what's on the top of your list is one day you said you were gonna go to college, because you'd never been to college, not for one day in your life. Now, I paid for college, but I'd never been to college, all right, myself personally. So I said, okay, how do I do that? Well, by connections, I found out that the University of Minnesota has this most wonderful program for seniors where you can go and audit a class for nothing. And if you want credit, I'm not going to tell you how much it is, but it's very reasonable. So I enrolled at the University of Minnesota in the September of 2018 as a freshman, right? And if you don't believe me, here's the evidence. I became a freshman. So it had been the most incredible experience, but it's not been in the classroom where my spirit has necessarily been lifted. So I want to tell you where it's been lifted. So my first class was a history class. It was actually the history of religion, and it was fascinating. And at the end of the semester, I'm about to do my finals, and I am sweating. This is the first time I've sat for an exam in 65 years. Now, fortunately, Cheryl, who was a former teacher, worked me through a lot of the stuff to help me. But when the class had begun, in the beginning of the semester, I'll never forget it, September the 5th, I walked into the classroom very nervous because, heck, what do I know? And but I'm a half an hour early. Now, how many other students do you think were in the classroom? Zippo. So I learned quickly that university students do not go to class that early. So a young woman walks in, her name was Lauren. I didn't know that at the time, and she sits in the row with me. So here I am, a 72-year-old guy. There's this young woman, and I'm pretty sure she's a freshman. And I think to myself, knowing I have 4 daughters, I've got boundaries, right? I know boundaries. So I said, do I even say hello? But I couldn't resist it. There's only the 2 of us. So I said, went up to her and I said, are you a freshman? And she said, yes, it's my first day of college. And I said, mine too. And she looked stunned. She looked absolutely stunned. And I told her my story. Well, for the rest of the semester, Laura and I sat a few seats away from each other. And then we just got to say, hello, how was your weekend? How was Thanksgiving? That was all it was. But then we have the finals. I'm into the blue book, if you know the blue book, right? And there it is. And I'm head down. And then I finished, I handed it to the professor, looked around for Lauren, and she's not there. I am devastated because I just wanted to wish her well. I said, Lauren, I may never, ever see you again. I may never, ever see you again. But she'd gone. And I went, oh, that's sad. So I go back to my seat. And on my seat is a post-it note. And the post-it note reads, Dear David, it has been so much fun being in college with you this semester. Thank you for being my first college friend. I have that post-it note in my day timer, and I read it all the time. The second beautiful experience of college what happened this particular summer. I've got 5 classes down, 15 credits, not bad. On pace to graduate when I'm 94, which is wonderful. I keep that vision in mind. And but I don't know what class I'm going to take. I've done 3 writing classes, 2 history classes, and I'm struggling. I want something different. So I don't know what I'm doing, and I hadn't done much research on it. But it's the July 4th weekend, and I was playing golf with a couple of friends. Cheryl came along to ride in the cart. And if you're a golfer, you understand that there's 3 people going out to play golf, and the pro shop will put a 4th person with you if there's a single needing a game. So they put this 4th person, a wonderful young woman, with us. Her name was Jessie. I have a daughter, Jessie. So I said, oh. And so we played for 9 holes, didn't say much to each other except good shot. Oh, you were robbed. All those original golf expressions that people have, right? But at the end of it, I'm curious. I'm thinking to myself, I bet you're in college for sure. So so I say to Jessie before she leaves, Jessie, I said, I just need to know where you are in your life right now. And she said, I hope it's not too personal. She said, no, I'm at the University of Minnesota. I said, oh, I say to myself, definitely, you're a senior. I said, well, what do you do there? And she said, oh, I'm a professor. I said, in what department? She says, the psychology department. I said, wow, can I share my story? And I said, I'm a freshman. She said, you are not. I said, yeah, I am. And she said, oh my God, what classes are you taking? I said, well, according to my counselor, anything I want. She says, I want you in my class. I said, wow. I said, depends. You know, what are you teaching this semester? Thinking about this. She said, the science of resilience. Now, I believe in a thing called synchronicity. Synchronicity, from a secular interpretation, is a meaningful coincidence, right? From a spiritual perspective, you might call it a God moment. So I have spent the last 3 months in the science of resilience, in this most magnificent experience with all of these young people. But it has come at absolutely the most perfect time in my life. Where did I put my thing? Here it is. I'm neither clever or especially gifted. I'm only very curious, said Albert Einstein. And that's what I want to keep with me at all times. So there is a 3rd pillar. And the 3rd pillar is soaring over adversity. So what does that mean? Well, it's how does your own adversities keep you in good stead for what you're currently experiencing? So let's quote the mystic, if we could, Muhammad Ali, right? Only a person who knows what it is like to be defeated can reach down to the bottom of their soul and come up with an extra ounce of power it takes to win when the match is even. So it's the Thanksgiving of 2010, or around about that time, and I'm going to have a haircut. And when I'm sitting with the barber, who I've been going to for 25 years, in fact, he was cutting my hair when I actually had hair, he said to me, David, what's this lump on the back of your neck? I said, what lump? And he took my hand, and there was a lump protruding from the back of my neck. And I said, oh my gosh. Now, ironically, that evening, Cheryl and I were leaving for England to visit with a friend of mine who had esophagus cancer, and his wife had told us that he may not have long. And I said, I got to see my dear friend. He's the godfather to my son, Sean. So we were flying out. I said, well, did I not go? Because this is serious. Or do I go? We went, and we spent a wonderful week. And it was fortuitous because I did never see him alive again. But I came back, went and had a diagnosis with an ENT surgeon, and she said, yes, the biopsy says you have cancer. And our counsel is you get this out of your head as soon as possible. So I ended up having surgery at the Mayo Clinic, surgery that was designated to take 2 hours and ended up taking 8 hours because the cancer was compromised the lymph nodes, and it was just about to hit the carotid artery. So I came out of there, and I was in pretty good physical health. So I recovered quickly in the next month from the surgery. However, they recommended that if I wanted to make sure I got all the cancer, that I have radiation and chemotherapy. And it's a classic throat neck cancer regimen that is 7 weeks of radiation and 3 chemotherapy treatments. So this very I think, fit, strong man of 195 pounds after 7 weeks was reduced to 145 pounds. I couldn't eat. They fed me with a feeding tube, and I could hardly walk 100 yards. That's what it did to me. But if you don't know anything about this type of cancer treatment, because it's in the neck area, the radiation is so sensitive, because if they don't get it right, you can lose your speaking voice. You got to get it right on. So what they do is that they create a mask for you, and then they bolt that mask onto a table to make sure that your head doesn't move, or you just have a minimum amount of space. So that's what they did to me. And if you're claustrophobic, of course, and I don't suffer much from that, but it's pretty debilitating. But you're in there for about 20 minutes. Now, let me tell you what how the mask looks. Oops, let me go back, please. One, a little bit too sensitive. Okay, no. Stay. Can we go to the mask? Can you help me up there, Alex? Thank you. There it is. Stay there. All right. So there's the mask. Pretty, Silence of the Lambs stuff, isn't it? I mean, it's really pretty awful. So I want you to keep looking at that mask while I tell you a very important story. So I needed help to get to the radiation treatment. So I had a number of drivers, and I was deeply grateful. And one of them, however, was my daughter, Jessie, who happens to be an artist, and a very good artist, if I may say so. But then I'm his dad, right? So I have bragging rights to one of my daughters. So Jessie drives me, and she's watching from wherever the nurses are, what's going on with my radiation. And we're driving home, and she said, Dad, she said, what do they do with those masks once you're finished? And I said, well, I don't know. I said, why? She said, oh, I'd love to get that mask. I said, you want that? She said, yes. Well, one of the things you know about artists, they have minds that you don't want to go where their minds go, right? Absolutely. So I said, sure, let me ask. So I asked the radiology department. I said, yeah, we can't use your mask. Please give it to her. So at the end of my radiation, I handed the mask to Jessie, and I said, Jess, I said, all I know is this. You're welcome to the mask, but please, I never want to see it again. So the months go by, I'm getting somewhat stronger, and it's 6 months, and it's in the fall, and it's the St. Paul art crawl. And Cheryl and I decide we're going to go and see what Jessie has created. So we go into the big room, something like this, actually, maybe a little bit smaller. And as we walk into the room where Jessie and others are exhibiting, I look about 40 to 50 feet across the room. And from my visceral response, I knew it was the mask. So I very, very gingerly walked towards the mask. And what confronted me was not the mask, but what Jessie had transformed the mask into. She had transformed it into a magnificent eagle. We need the video. Alex? Sorry. Here is what was important to me at that time. Next to the mask was the following. I think it was the following. Can we go back? Thank you. Breathe. Breathe. Don't panic. All will be well. I think. I need to go to where the mask was, the photo of the mask. Can you go to that? No, just leave it there. Thank you. Okay, this was what was next to the mask. I believe that we all have totems that guide us through our lives. For my father, it is the eagle. It is a symbol of his spirit, vision, and strength. I've made this work from my father's radiation mask. This mask represents his enormous spirit, his vision of a healthy and cancer-free life, and his unfaltering strength. What I want to say to you, at that point in my life, I did not have unfaltering strength. I did not have a vision for my life. I was surviving. But when I read that and I saw what Jessie had done, how she had transformed my mask into the eagle, is when I said to myself, okay, you seem to be doing well. Maybe it's time for you to be able to find a new purpose for your life and create a new vision for your life. And for that, I was so deeply appreciative. And so where we find ourselves today, of course, is accessing that adversity to deal with the current adversity. And so I think what I'd like to do right now, for those of you watching online or those of you who have never met Cheryl, is I'd like to introduce and bring my wife, Cheryl, up to the front. Would you do that? Would you come and stand next to me? Yeah. Now, I've got to tell you something. This is not a shy woman, so I don't know. I don't, anyway. But the other thing that I want to do, and I think it will wrap up this time beautifully, is that at Thanksgiving, a couple of weeks ago, Cheryl borrowed from what was said by Julianne Moore in a speech she gave in the movie Still Alice. It's a beautiful film about someone who's diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and as she's struggling at the last time to keep as much of herself as she possibly could. Now, I brought those words, dear, with me, and I'm not too sure how you feel about reading them, Or if you want, because Cheryl, one of the symptoms of Alzheimer's is that you lose your reading ability. Do you think you could handle that?
I want to give it a try.
Okay, good. All right, away you go.
Everything I have accumulated in my life and worked so hard. I'm sorry.
Four. Yes.
Wait a second. Everything I have accumulated in my life and worked so hard for becoming is being ripped away. But I know that I'm alive. I have family and friends who I love dearly. I get frustrated with myself for not being able to remember things, but I still have moments of pure joy and happiness. And please don't think that I am suffering. I am not suffering. I am struggling to live in the moment.
To be a part.
To what?
To be a part.
Oh, to be a part of things.
Stay connected.
Stay connected to whom I once was. To live in a moment. To live in the moment. I tell myself is really all I can do.
That's it. That's fine.
Is that all?
Yeah. So stay right there.
Okay.
Stay right there. So just stay right with me.
Okay.
A final thought,
Yes.
if we can. One last thought. Okay. We must let go of the life we plan so as to have the life waiting for us. We've been married 6 years and we had a lot of plans, right? We married at 70, right? But we now enter the life waiting for us. It's been a pleasure to be with you all this morning. Bryce, thanks for organizing. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, David, so much. Am I on? So we would like to take this time to open it for questions if you have questions for David. And I would like to bring you the mic if you do. Could you raise your hand if you have a question? David, do you want to just?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Oh,
yeah.
Here. Okay.
Question for Stacy wants to do no appreciation. Well, my wife Jane and I just married 2 years ago. We've known each other since we were 10 and 12, I think, at that age. Too hard to think back that far. But long story made short, I came up here from the beautiful state of Wisconsin for practice. And I met David and his lovely wife because of the relationship that Jane has had with him for several years working at another company. And I've come to appreciate this couple like I've never appreciated another couple in my entire life. For the I guess an inspiration to do better than I've been doing in my own. And to see the challenge of going through, also going through medical challenges. And that has been such an inspiration to Jane and I. I thank you for that. That's wonderful.
Yeah, great. That's a young woman down there. Yeah.
I would thank you, David. That was beautiful. Love hearing your stories as an artist who writes stories and performs stories on stage. I think that your story is very powerful and just beautiful. I would love to hear from you. What are some of the things that you had previous to your illness? Something that you learned that now you carry on and try to, and this could be a longer list. Obviously, sometimes people have longer lists of things that they've learned, but I would love to know how you walk now through life as an ancestor that was wanting to share and to educate others about.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a lovely question. I don't have an answer, but it's a lovely question. Of course, just turning 76, and I hope that I'm going to do something with this for you. I really do. So I have a new book coming out next year, which is called If You're Alive, Your Mission on Earth Isn't Finished. And probably in the fall of next year. It's been it's finished, but I've had to delay the release because of our situation. But it focuses on who we are as elders. At my age, not you. You've got a long way to go, right? But I think some of us in the room qualify, don't we? And I guess what has really come to the realization, my realization, is that we all stand on the shoulders of those, obviously, who come before us, and I feel a tremendous sense of responsibility for making sure that whatever I do, and I'm not going to build a big non-for-profit, but whatever I do, that somehow that maybe someone will be able to stand on my shoulders in some way. And so whatever my actions are, whatever my attitudes are on a daily basis, I know they're perceived and reflected in others. Because one thing I think we forget is that people cannot see inside of us. They can't see our intentions. All they see is what we do. So they make their opinions, their judgments on that. And so realizing that without becoming paranoid, I endeavor to make sure that I'm doing my best to have the more positive effect on others. Does that get there somewhere? Mm-hmm. Yeah, can you give me your name, please? She doesn't need a microphone. Maybe she does for the online.
She does. I do. Oh, that's I am so happy to see each of you because I have connected with you for so many years, for so many years. I do want to tell you because we haven't mentioned how I'm going to die, and I do want to mention that.
You absolutely did.
So my daughter Wendy is a doula for death, and my daughter Sarah is a doula for birth. So I have these children who bookends. Oh yeah, they bookend. So Wendy, very close to both of them, but Wendy and I have made the decision, along with David and his family and my family, that I want to die by using VSED. And VSED is voluntary stop eating and drinking. I know it's going to happen, and we have worked a lot. We just worked through a lot of different things. And I think that next March will be the time that I start VSED. And I'm not afraid at all. I'm prepared for this. I am so effing tired of not being able to do anything. And so I'm an advocate for obviously Wendy, but also just the process of stopping eating and drinking. And it's not painful. It would take like what, 7 days?
Yeah.
Whatever it is. And I'm good with it. I'm good with it. And if you want any information, but it is called VSED, and it's voluntary stop eating and drinking.
And that's what's going to work for me. And in that process, you know, my friends can come over and they can, you know, comb my hair, lie in bed with me, whatever it takes. But it's just, it's a very important decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did well.
Yeah.
Thank you, John, for mentioning that. Yeah. Just a little backstory there because Cheryl brought that up. It's hard when she's speaking like that. Cheryl is physically I can personally attest to this, good shape. And okay, all right, good enough. There you go. But the emotional pain is significant. Her brother spent 5 years in memory care with Alzheimer's, and Cheryl just said, I don't want that. I don't want that for me, and I don't want that for my family. And so she made that. But looking at her, listening to her, you say, wow, how can she do that? Well, it's what happens the rest of the day and what she has to get through. So I think we've gotten our time. That was a lovely, thank you, dear. I know you can't resist muffling in on my time. But however.
Oh, David and Cheryl, thank you so much. Let's have a. I think it's marvelous inspiration for all of us elders, at least if you're in my elder stage. I would like to mention next week, we have a program to talk about the beneficiaries of our annual Christmas giving offering. And 3 organizations will be represented: the Groveland Food Shelf, Align Minneapolis, which is formerly the downtown churches for the homeless, and Every Meal. And it will be here at 9 o'clock, December 11th. And I hope you can join us again. And thank you all so much for coming. And I assume David will be here for a little while and would answer some questions, and
Good.
more, and Cheryl and lovely family.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. 10, I'm sorry, I said 9. Yeah, 10 o'clock, sorry.
Great.